Are you sure you want to do this? The question dropped into the room like a small stone falling into still water, and for a moment, it felt as if the whole kitchen listened to the ripple. The warm yellow light above the table cast a soft glow. The mug Claire had forgotten to finish, still releasing a faint thread of steam, and the lemon cleaner mixed with the trace of her perfume in the air. Claire held a crumpled email in one hand and her passport in the other. Mark stood near the window, staring at the city as if he wished he could fold it neatly and put it away. Lucy was at a friend's house. Mia was upstairs trying to focus on homework she couldn't absorb. And Claire stood in that kitchen, facing a choice she had never thought she'd have to make: fly across the world to her mother, or stay and hold the household together like she always had. But the email didn't just mention illness, it mentioned surgery and risk. The word emergency hung between them like a warning. Claire had promised herself many times that she would never let a crisis unravel the careful architecture of her life. But suddenly, the crisis was here, knocking loudly. Her mind jumped to the wedding photos arranged neatly on the mantel, the small routines that held the family in place, the bills paid, the responsibilities carried without fanfare. And then she thought of the cold fluorescent corridors of a hospital she had seen only in movies. For years, she had measured love through sacrifice, order, and consistency. But now she had to choose between being a mother or being a daughter. What she didn't know yet was that this trip would become the axis on which her entire life turned, because at the other end of it, she would meet someone she never expected: a 20-year-old young man who would enter her life like a tide and reshape everything she believed about loyalty, desire, and courage. After the dinner party at the neighbor's apartment, the living room still smelled of cheap perfume and spilled wine. People laughed, but every laugh felt sharpened, like it was hiding something. Sarah, the neighbor across the hall, had told Claire with a bright, artificial smile, "You always do the right thing," as if doing the right thing was something Claire tucked into her purse. Elena, the journalist, watched everything with eyes that missed nothing. David, one of Mark's colleagues, had made a clumsy joke about marriage contracts that drew nervous laughter. Claire left the party early to pack, and someone snapped a photo of her in the hallway. Later, someone posted it online with a question dripping sarcasm. Why is she flying out in the middle of the night? A harmless comment, or so it seemed. But every rumor begins as a whisper, and that whisper would come back like a storm at the most fragile moments of her life. The next morning, the phone rang. The nurse spoke gently but directly. Claire's mother had been diagnosed with a cerebral aneurysm and needed immediate surgery. Claire's heart dropped. She decided instantly to take the first available flight. Mark listened silently and began organizing logistics. Who would pick up Mia? Who would call the school? Which documents needed signing? Claire could only think of her mother lying in a cold room surrounded by machines. She texted Lucy, "I'll be away a few days, trust me." Lucy sent 4 blue hearts back. Claire almost cried. She boarded the train to the airport, rehearsing apologies and decisions in her mind. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and artificial lemon. Dr. Alvarez explained the situation with calm precision. Risk, surgery, possibility of complications, hope. And then, while Claire tried to process everything, she noticed someone standing quietly nearby. Ethan, 20 years old, a trainee assigned to help of patient paperwork. Too young for such a heavy environment, yet something about him felt grounded, steady, human. "If you want, I can help with the forms," he said, his voice soft. Claire didn't know why, but his presence felt like a small anchor in a sea of panic. The surgery began. The hours stretched torturously. Claire sat hunched in a stiff chair, staring at the closed doors. Then her phone vibrated. "Mark, I'm coming back home early. We need to talk." It felt like accusation wrapped in logistics. Ethan remained with her, not crowding, not imposing, just being there. When Dr. Alvarez finally came out and told her the surgery had gone well, but recovery would be delicate, Claire felt relief crash through her body. But that relief dissolved quickly. because the picture someone had taken of her with the doctor had already spread online. And within hours, the comments began. Then the insinuations. Then the accusation. Is she having an affair with the surgeon? The rumor grew like fire on dry grass, and Mark believed it. From that moment on, everything shifted. Phone calls turned sharp, messages turned cold, silence grew heavy. Mark began talking about stability, custody, emotional risk. Meanwhile, Claire was trying to keep her mother alive and herself sane. Ethan kept showing up, with coffee, with small words, with quiet. They began talking in the hospital garden between tests. He told her about his sister, about growing up without much, about responsibility at a young age. She told him about her childhood by the sea, about motherhood, about the parts of her marriage that had been crumbling quietly for years. Their conversations weren't flirtation. They were oxygen. Two humans recognizing each other in the middle of chaos. Weeks passed. The rumor turned into a weapon. Mark turned into an opponent. Lawyers stepped in. Reports, screenshots, statements, interrogations, questions that pierced deeply. Claire's name was processed and judged by people who didn't know her at all. Ethan kept supporting her, not with grand gestures, not with romance, but with presence. And sometimes, presence is its own kind of strength. Love, even if no one calls it that. Months later, her mother slowly began to recover. The girls adapted to a new routine. The fake friends vanished. The scandal died down. The marriage didn't return to what it had been, but it didn't end either. It became something different, a quieter coexistence, less illusion, more truth. And Ethan? Ethan became part of the community, a volunteer who helped children, a young man respected for his gentleness, a steady figure. He didn't ruin anything, he didn't replace anything, he simply helped Claire rebuild herself. One afternoon, Claire stood at the entrance of a community center, welcoming children for a reading circle she had started. Sunlight streamed through the windows, laughter echoed. And then Ethan appeared at the doorway, wearing the same soft smile that had carried her through the darkest season of her life. In that moment, Claire realized something important. Life had broken, but then it had rearranged itself in a way that was more honest, more grounded, and more hers than ever before. If you made it this far, I want you to tell me something. If you were in Claire's place, torn between your mother's life, a collapsing marriage, and a storm of public judgment, would you have gone or would you have stayed? Start your comment with, I would go or I would stay. Your comment helps this channel grow and helps others reflect on choices that shape entire lives. Before you leave, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss the next emotional story. I'll see you in the next one.